A little difference. Let's pray. Lord Jesus, thank you. Thank you for making a way for us to be able to come into your very presence through your Son, Jesus. We are so grateful. And then gifting us, not only with your Holy Spirit, but with gifts to give back to you in our service in the way that we show others we know you, love you, and want to love them as well. And in this time, Lord, we invite your presence because we really want to be the best at letting others know how much you love them and care for them just by the way that we welcome them here. We know that we have a very short window of opportunity. And so, Lord, we pray for your power and your wisdom, your knowledge, and everything we need to pull together, Lord Jesus, the best welcome we can for those that you're going to guide here. And we want to be faithful to be careful about how we welcome them and then enfold them here, Lord, in your love. In your precious name. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. So in your hand, as I mentioned, it's a Google representation. Well, it's actually a Google picture from on top. One of the reasons, as you know, we do this entire, what we now call the connection team, is because of the fact that we have found through research, when I first started in ministry back in the early 2000s, as in every Sunday at church kind of lay leadership back then, they told us that we had approximately 30 days to engage somebody, that they had 4 visits, and in those 4 visits, we had to somehow influence them in such a way that they would eventually what they called bolt on, and they'd become part of the church. 10 years later, that dropped to 30 minutes. And the fact that the attention span with the introduction of the iPad and the iPhone and the whole internet becoming mobile in 2010, the attention span began to go way down, and that interactive thing became much more brief, and that is we had a much shorter time period, smaller window to interact, get that kind of connection. Now, according to the latest research, we have 3 seconds, literally, in the parking lot, eye to eye. And that's why one of the reasons that we're going to be moving not only to a lobby, moving most of our welcome outside, is because as soon as somebody drives into that driveway, they're scanning, they're thinking, where do I go, what do I do, will this be uncomfortable, is this something I even want to do, I barely even got here, and if this becomes any more uncomfortable, I'm just going to pull that loop and pull right back out of the same driveway I just pulled in. So that's why, one of the reasons why we want to do it, we're moving it out to them. Another reason is because we're in an amazing place where being inside isn't what any of us do on a regular basis. We look for opportunities to be outside. So in addition to that 3-second welcome, we're moving other things out there like name tags. If people are going to stand around and talk and enjoy one another, let's do that before you even come in the building, because that's going to have a welcoming presence even in the parking lot. People are going to be walking up new going, wow, this is amazing. They're in it, they're doing it already. We haven't even entered the building yet. So those are a couple of the whys. And then we have to also at the same time adjust what we have been doing to what we believe will be working a little better for us. Because anybody here that has been part of the connection team knows that there were a lot of great ideas. And as we put them together as a package, what we finally came to realize was there's some good ideas we're going to hang on to, and there's some that we're going to let go of because they're just not really effective for us at this time. So with that in mind, Brandon, why don't you come up and kind of give some of the, I'm going to get the image up here. I'm going to pass around another piece here. What I would ask you to do, because of the difficulty of handing something out and then everybody reading it, as soon as you get it in your hands, do a quick once over and then back here with 100% attention, because we really do want you to know what it is we're talking about, and we're going to give you positioning in place. Robert, would you do that again? Just pass those out.
Yeah, like Matt said, the gurus of hospitality with Hyatt hotels, or the guys that really spend a lot of time and effort and energy have talked about this need for hospitality and eye-to-eye contact, as Matt said, 3 seconds, and that's just insane. And even I was blown away with some current feedback with some visitors that came last Sunday, and they said they stopped by the whole business park trying to figure out where we were. And those of you that come here frequently, you know the sign on the corner, you know the sandwich sign, and you know where to come. But it's helpful to put yourself in the eyes of a visitor who are thinking, okay, maybe someone used the reference of Tin City, which is the block north of us, or they're just trying to figure it out, and maybe the kid makes a noise in the back, or there's a close call and they get distracted and they miss a sign or two. And so having signage is helpful. It lets them know that we know they're coming and trying to find us. And when they find a parking spot, then to see us in the parking lot, having if you see on the north side of the image, to have those green circles would be tables for the name tags. The stars are the individuals. Some are greeters, and I know that red didn't print
Yeah, that
super.
red did not come out.
That didn't. It looked super great on my computer screen,
Oh.
but unfortunately the cornhole tables and chairs is probably the only thing that came out
Yep.
legibly in its size
Backwards.
0 font. I apologize. I asked Matt if we had magnifying glasses earlier, and he said no, so that's my bad. We should have provided that for you guys. So the whole thought is when Jesus came, he came to us, and we need to be putting ourselves in the visitor's shoes, knowing that our program, the program for the kids, the message, the worship, that's all wonderful, and we put a lot of effort into that. But the reality is those 3 seconds, if we haven't connected with them, then there's already going to be a wall, there's already going to be something going up where they just don't know if they fit, or they might not get connected after the service and leave. And so the goal is right away when they park to get a name tag and a hello with a warm face with a name tag greeter, primarily for young families, which is our target audience. We're trying to attract young families with kids as they come in for the first time. The typical family now we see is a family who's remarried and has a young kid as well as a teenager. And so now you've moved from just a family with, we need to get our kids in said area, to I need to get one group of kids in this area, then middle school. Now I've done all that, can I go and worship? And so to be able to remove the initial concern for parents is who is this church and who's going to help me, to go, here's who we are and we're here to help right away with the name tag. And then as you see, there's those green circles, hopefully you can see those at our new entrance right here. You have the 2 green tables for name tags with the greeter. Ideally we'll end up with 2 there, but starting with 1 because there's also going to be a which David and Melissa, you guys will help us with this, but we'll hopefully have either someone tied in with kids ministry or another greeter serving as the first time kids check in there. And so that way, as Matt pointed out, the designers of the building conveniently put a single door that can remain open right there. So that allows the double doors to be thorough traffic for the weekly attenders to go in and find their place. But then the new family can walk right through that door with the greeter who's just connected with them, checked their family in and said, walk with me. As you can see, we go into this new foyer lobby area, walk right back here where the kids check-in currently is, and point out next week you can just check your kid in right here, but this week we'll take you on in. And then it lets the families know here's where elementary goes, here's where youth goes, and then here's the worship center. So immediately what that has accomplished is within 3 seconds there's eye-to-eye contact once they get in the parking lot. Secondly, they now feel like they're insiders. They know how we operate, where kids go, where youth goes, and where they go. And so the second visit they come, they feel like, man, I've been doing this forever because we know exactly where we go. And I've not only made a connection with that first-time greeter, maybe Joe's out there, and then the next Sunday, hey, I know Joe, and Joe introduced me to a few people. But the great thing, as we talked about, our intentionality with this process is looking at the first-time greeter or the greeter spotter, or the first-time spotter. We said, well, that really is supposed to be the host and to help make sure they feel connected. And so once the parent does all the legwork of getting their elementary kids, their middle school, high school kids to where they need to go, now they probably have questions, or they're maybe just wanting to feel who's going to connect for me. And as they've been greeted by the name tag greeters, we'll have 2 greeters just inside the double doors to the left. If you can envision that, you get your name tags, greet, you walk into the next area, which is the lobby. To your right, you can go to the kids, middle school, high school, or the left, there'll be 2 greeters right there handing you the bulletin.
Which is pretty much what we're doing now.
And that's what we're doing now. So there's nothing changed there. It's just another smiling face welcoming, and they go, okay, now I've been welcomed by 3 people. You go in, and that's where we're talking about having guest hosts. And that role is to be that 3rd layer to make sure no one's missed, because we all know that in any kind of system there's cracks and people like to find those and fall through them. And so we want to prevent that from happening. But the guest host is great because if you've met somebody, which I have in my mind, I'm always diverting to the system. So I meet Greg and I go, hey Greg, nice to meet you, first Sunday. What's the next step? Find a seat, worship, and then go to this car. But what if we had some steps about our connection class, which is membership? And Keith alluded to, do you know what your spiritual gifts are? That's a great place for them to find their spiritual gifts in that connection class. So to be able to say, hey, come to the connection class is a pretty big leap for a family who just accomplished getting their elementary, high school, and now they're figuring out, is this church even for me? But to say, hey, we're glad you're here. Stop by the Connect booth, which we'll have in the courtyard we're going to create. And so that way for the guest host, and even for a greeter that's normally just saying hi, if someone comes up to you and is like, hey, I need information about this. Well, I, as a volunteer greeter, probably don't know all of the new events Josh is doing with youth ministry or what David and Melissa did with kids ministry, but I can say, hey, you know what, that's a great question. Let's go to either said person, or if they're not available, let's head to the Connect booth. And the Connect booth is the one central location for all of the upcoming event information, registration for life groups when we start those in the winter, spring, a Connect class. Hey, I heard last week they're doing this connection class. When does that start? Hey, you know, that's a great question. Go to the Connect booth. And so that's a great place for the guest host to not have all the pressure of knowing everything, but being that person to say, hey, Matt, I noticed you're new, and potentially if they have a family, then they'll have a bag with just some information about the church and how they get connected, which will identify them for the guest host to go up to and seat them and just say, hey, do you have any questions? I want to make sure you know there's a mother's room over here, a bathroom over here, just to let you know some of our layout. But if you have any questions, I'm here for you. Or if you'd like a tour, after the service, find me. I'll be kind of roaming around there. And so the guest host is really that third layer to make sure either if a guest doesn't have a family and doesn't get that experience dropping their kids in, meeting someone, getting that guest bag, if someone walks in kind of checking the place out, they're probably not a building inspector, they're probably new, and they're figuring out, like, in the case of an emergency, how do I get out of this place, or where's a safe place to sit? The guest host is then to say, hey, how's it going? How long have you been attending at life? Or we have some non-threatening phrases we'll arm you with, because like you, I have to have a couple go-to statements, because either someone came up to me with, hey, fix this, or hey, Harper just did something that's embarrassing, go deal with Harper. Our other two kids are great, but you could pray for Harper. She's the one that something will happen. We're all having something that's going to pull us, but our heart is to, okay, how do I connect with this first-time person? Here's some ways to identify and not threaten or make them put off, because the average attendance is once every 6 to 8 weeks. And so our average attenders think they come here every weekly, but they're probably coming, once every 6 to 8 weeks. So they don't want to be mistaken by the new pastor as first time. If they're like, I was here day one. Who are you? But if we can identify they're new, have a place to direct them, so that they feel like, okay, here's a clear next step in this discipleship path. Most of them don't know their spiritual gifts, but that's not an entry conversation point to say, hey, how long have you been attending life? Well, I just started. Oh, great. Let me get you seated, and after the service, we have a Connect booth. Then Matt gets up, does announcements, he points them to the Connect booth. Now they've heard it twice. They're twice as likely to go to some place and get connected than they were without having that location. And a lot of the families, which we have hanging out, talking after the service, to some degree with the play area, we want to leverage what we're already doing. This whole process and really being intentional isn't saying this is all new. I hope you feel and can see it's like, wow, we've already made some good steps. If we just clean this up a little bit, make this a little more clear, and just be intentional with how God's provided this place to create this space just outside of the play structure, so that parents can have a cornhole match with maybe their middle school son while their elementary school kids are playing on the play structure. We want to be mindful and even take suggestions on, David's here all morning and his favorite football team's playing. Maybe we get the TV in the lobby switched over at the end of the service to have highlights of the football scores. So as the dads are hanging out, their kids are playing, wives are talking, the dads are checking in on football. And it just shows that we know, who they are and what they're thinking about. But really, this area will then turn into an extension of what's already happening after the service in the worship center or with kids. Because as you know, there's that tension. I want to talk to someone, but I feel for David and Melissa, and I want to get Harper out of their hair as soon as possible. But I also want to connect with this other family. And so with all that tension, we're saying, let's create a portable fence here put the Connect booth there, so that's our main place. We point visitors and attenders. They all get to meet and connect there to get information. With some cornhole, some tables and chairs set up out there so you can sit down and have some coffee and donuts that we're looking at having just off that planter to the left. We'll have a table set up with coffee and donuts out there. And as you may notice, the goal isn't to have a huge, vibrant, thriving community before service. It's really saying, okay, we get here, especially for young families, if they can get here between 9:30 and 10, that's a good window, you know, for them to shoot for. And we realize that the main connection time is that 10:30 to 11 time slot, and to give them that space right here, opening those roll-up doors, let them see, oh, this is where the kids did their lesson, and we can hang out. So that all starts with the first-time greeter with name tags, the two greeters handing out bulletins, and then the guest host with the kids first time checking.
And with that, let me just review real quick, because Brandon and I see this in our heads. We've walked it out in the parking lot, and it's kind of like already set in our heads. And I think you guys are trying to visualize it. And right now, we still have things that are on order that are going to make up the lobby, make up the tents and out there and stuff like that. So as we're talking about right here, follow here on your Life Hospitality team thing, the greeters, the two greeters. This is what we do right now. This is where that new covering is. The new covering has been moved to where those three green circles are, so that's the new entry right there. All right, so the two new greeters are going to be, greeters are right in here. Today we had Asia and Robert. Okay, you guys, that's still exactly what it is. You with the bulletins, the happy face, and that's still just inside, in this case, the new double doors. Going down, the kids check-in. The first time check-in is going to be this white door, so we have a big roll-up. Right next to the roll-up is the white door. That white door, in a sense, is going to be the special entry. We'll have a table right in front of that says new child check-in. In case somebody's coming up, they're going, I don't know, I've got kids. We'll know, and we're going to be able to just say, right here, check in right here. If they've been here before with their kids, they're just going to go either walk straight through the new entry and back here as usual, or they can go through that door and get there. So in a sense, that...
So there's two different places then, it's not all...
Just for new
Just
check-in.
for new.
New check-in is going to be outside.
Okay.
And then one of those check-in guests, as it says here, kids check-in, the
Right.
job description is the fact that you're helping new families, and then you, as a children's check-in person,
Right, you're gonna
will
walk
walk them
them.
into, and basically to this area. I mean, you can walk them in as well.
Okay.
But there's also people there that are going to basically say, hey, yeah, great, I'm glad you're new. Come on in, let me show you the place.
Okay.
So the next one down is the connection booth, which is going to be here and under this area. See that the little blue circle, white circle with blue around it? That's a connection team, a connection booth.
Okay.
That will be there when people get here, but we're not really going to be pointing people to it till the end of service, because what we want is that to be a collection point
Is
with
that all going to
everything
be
else.
covered by a roof?
Yeah, we're going to have a couple pop-up tents right
Oh,
here.
pop-up tents, okay.
Yeah. In time, we've actually connected with our partners next door, the ones that do all events, and they have circus tents that they actually retire at the end of the season. We're hoping they'll have one that we can stake down and just forget.
Nice.
Just leave there, yeah. In the meantime, it's going to be a couple pop-up tents. We've also ordered one that will have a logo on it that will basically be different than the others, so we can say, hey, it's right under the white tent, or whatever color it is. The connection, go to the connection booth right under the white tent. So all this is also, here is going to be the cornhole and tables and chairs. We're going to get umbrellas and stuff like that. So it will be a hangout space. And as Brandon mentioned, we're going to roll this door up so that parents can see their kids in the play structure. There'll be a thoroughfare that they'll actually come out. He mentioned this white fence. We're going to put up some sort of probably vinyl white fencing that will eliminate these places as parking spaces, which they are right now, so that the parent that's hanging out right here with their kid is assured that they're not running out into this, which is still going to have some sort of traffic in it.
Are you going to add parking? Because
Well, at this time, this entire dirt area over here is all ours.
Yeah.
We still have literally a quarter mile of parking here on Ruth. From the tip of this curb all the way to the dead end, both sides, if you add the two, it's a half mile of curbside parking that nobody uses.
Right next to the building, are those parking places going to be used?
These?
Yes.
Yes. This is all still open. These are handicap spots. These will probably turn into visitor positions.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Right, and that's going to be part of our parking lot greeters that will at least try and identify that new person and say, yeah, come on in. Park right there. Yes, right. Except for Pastor Keith, Pastor Brandon, and Matt's spaces. There's 2 for visitors. Is that what you meant? At least.
And there's gonna be a sign that says if you partner, you preach.
You preach. So the name tag table is the next one, which is right out here, right next to the planter that is there. And again, this is where the covering is. So we're going to have the name tag tables out there so that as you approach, you're going to be welcomed, and you're going to, as we do now, invite you to put on a name tag. And the final position on this is the guest host, which is going to be right inside here. So as you picture the new lobby, you're walking in, we're going to have a pole and curtains like you've seen at Convention Center. The curtain's about 10 feet high. It's going to go across this entire basketball area. So as you walk in, it'll be very clearly determined what that lobby is. We're going to have a TV screen up there rolling announcements. We'll have tables in there and stuff. Right out here is where the name tags, the coffee and stuff is out here. You walk through here, the greeters. Now after either the children's parents have gone back here and come back, or somebody new comes in, thanks, then you're going to be right at, just double click on that picture. Then you're going to be right here, which is that door right there. The children's ministry door that we have been using to come this way is now going to be the door that actually takes you into the sanctuary. Is this clear?
No, you totally lost me.
Okay. As you come in these double doors,
Okay.
the new ones,
That's the new
you
entrance.
hang a left. That's how you get in the sanctuary.
Oh, the one that we just,
Yeah,
that big
and that's
heavy
where,
door.
yep, and that's where the guest hosts will be
Okay.
looking
got
for
it.
anyone, the parent that's being returned after putting their kids in, or somebody who's just come into the lobby and kind of like, okay, where do I go now?
Okay,
Right?
so then
That's
they
where
go
the
through
guest
that
host.
door
And for the most part, the guest host really is there to figure out what that person needs. It's not like, hey, let me give you a tour. It's more like, hey, welcome, glad you made it. Is there anything I can do for you? And they'll say, well, you know, we haven't been here before. Oh, okay. Would you like me to show you around? Whatever it is. Like I said, Brandon and I will give you a few key phrases. We don't want to say, are you new? We say, I don't think we've met before. Or other things where, hey, if you have any questions, I'd be happy to help you. Something that doesn't wave the flag, oh, you're new, you're uncomfortable, I can see it, let me make that worse, okay? So those are basically the jobs. So in essence, what I'm going to be asking you in the near future via email next week is, now that you've been here, now that you've heard what we're doing, will you still want to remain greeters? And if not, what position do you feel best in? And what I'm going to need, as you can see in this room, I'm probably going to need as many people as are in this room right now every single week. So obviously our numbers are going to have to multiply, and I'll be reaching out to some of those that couldn't make it today. Great.
So the area where the kids play, and I believe Josh uses, I think they do some stuff here, I think.
Right.
Is that eliminated?
No, we'll strike the pole and curtain after the service has begun. And then this area will still be available to them.
Nice.
And that's something we're still working out. We're working out with Josh, because to some extent, that's not realistic. But if we let Josh know this isn't going to be available, what other games can we do and stuff? So
Well, the one thing the kids, like my grandkids and such, they're different ages.
Mhm.
Play structure is appropriate till a certain age.
right.
If we're trying to talk about, you talk about there's a 14-year-old and there's a 6-year-old. This 14-year-old is not going to play in the play structure. This is an area where they will come out. I mean, a lot of them play. I mean, I'm here a lot afterwards, and I see that the older kids in particular, they do things as an active thing. It's an extension. You know, they got the foosball, they like that and such. I'm not sure that the blow-up things don't really, from a standpoint of our church service, you know, I know it's here for the play and whatever, but I'm not sure that the bounce house thing doesn't take away valuable space. As I've been a Sunday school leader and try to do things in there, that makes that room, to me, a lot less usable, particularly as the rooms have expanded.
So let me interrupt, just because these are things we have to figure out, definitely.
Yeah.
And at this point, we haven't. But in the meantime, we're working with those that it will impact. Like, for instance, the 14-year-old. In reality, we don't have anything for a 14-year-old.
Basketball.
But we're gonna have, well,
No, but I'm saying,
to a degree.
no, I'm just
Unless,
saying that,
unless there's 5 or 6 other families in there visiting, we don't want to say, hey, you guys need to
well,
go
then you may
outside.
move the basketball into their room.
These are things we
In
have
other
to
words, it'd be
figure
on the
out.
carpet.
Yeah.
We've had them at other churches I've been at on carpeted areas. So I was thinking, if you don't want it here, put it in there, move the bounce houses out.
So
you have space.
we know that this isn't turnkey. This is.
No, I'm just trying to say, we're trying to build youth.
Yeah.
And the thing is, if we increase the greeting, but decrease the youth, one of the reasons that people come here is because of youth.
Well, one of the areas we will have is outside. We're gonna have the cornhole, and we're gonna have the disc frisbee thing, so we can encourage some of that activity outside. Some, and again, as we figure this out and we find out, oh my gosh, everybody's gathering in here. How can we draw them outside so that this area becomes available? Do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, I think to your point is, this is highly used by youth and we don't want to take away from that. And so the pipe and drip being portable, we could easily maneuver it so that this stays usable. The hard surface is nice because carpet does have its drawbacks with balls and such. But that is a good space we need to look at long term. Is that going to be used for youth, and how do we set it up so that it stays for youth? Or is it better just to have people outside watching, like to your point, the younger kids, getting them out of this area, watching their kids on the play structure so that you have free reign of this after the service without the pipe and drape, because the pipe and drape is super easy to slide out of the way. Another option we had was to hang a cable, which would greatly interfere with the basketball setup. So then we would have had to literally do what you said and move the hoop. But with the portable pipe and drape system, we can slide it against the wall. It maintains the integrity of the room for you.
Are there any other questions as we look through this,
I
Asia?
have questions.
Yeah.
I'm going to make my comments. I totally get, I love greeting people. I think they should be greeted. My own personal opinion, I feel like some of this is a little overkill. I feel like some of the amount of people is not necessary. The name tag thing, I think about like we're going into weather where it's going to get windy, it's going to get wet, I almost feel like people would rather be greeted with the information first than a name tag. When I talk to new people coming in with name tags, some people are like, I don't want that. And I go, that's fine, yeah, no worries, you know? But I feel like that's, I don't know, it just feels a little backwards to me.
Having name tags outside
Yeah,
before the greeting.
in my opinion, watching, and I do it a lot, the greeting, I feel like the people with the, you know, the monthly thing should be by the door saying hi. Then when you walk in, have a table set up with the name tags. And just, I always make sure people know when they're new, like, hey, we do name tags, I let them know that. I've always felt like when you had the teams for name tags, it was unnecessary. It was just more people standing that weren't needed because the two greeters could be like, hey, welcome, this or that. Or maybe three at the most.
And the impact that's coming with new visitors is the fact that we have to have somebody who can leave. In other words, hey, you're new,
Oh,
let
I
me
get it,
walk you,
yeah.
right? And so that's the redundancy at that front table, which we never, that's why I say when we first set this up, it's like, yeah, this is a good idea, except we don't have 2, 3, 4 new visitors every week. We're planning in the future to have that. And as a result, we have to gear up for it, because as soon as, for instance, at the new children's check-in point, as soon as one new family comes, we lose that person at the table. So we have to have another person at that table. Same thing with once the greeter comes, you pass that greeter and the person's new, that greeter can't leave the door. So we're counting on the guest host, again, redundant to the place that right now it doesn't feel like it. Because if we don't have any visitors, people are standing around going, what am I doing here?
Yeah.
Right? So I can see that. And the name tag thing, I think, is a good point. I think that we'll consider that. We also know that we're going to have 2 instances of what we do. Inside and outside.
Yeah.
Rain, wind, okay, we're doing this inside. So that might be something we can test, because the other thing is this transitional time, we have to educate our people as well. This is
Yeah.
what's happening and why it's happening. But thank you for the comment. I think it's valid. Barbara?
I know there's going to be plenty of times when each and every one of us would not be able to make it that Sunday. They're
Yes.
either out of town or visiting family or something. Are you going to have rotating?
Yes. Just like we do now, there are 2 teams that basically put in 2 weeks and then they're off 2 weeks. I hope to maintain that, because I don't think anybody can really say, I'm there all the time, therefore. And if you have to opt out, you have to opt out. But what we want to do is make sure that there is a 2-week time period that people can kind of go, you know, and I can be at church, I can hang out and talk to people. And then there's 2 weeks, it's like, no, this is my service. So when you can, we're hoping that you're going to be all in. And when you can't, we understand that. People have lives.
I mean, my question dovetails on that. I know Nancy's gone, So who's gonna be doing the scheduling?
At this time, I will be, but we are looking to hire someone to replace Nancy.
Oh, okay.
And they'll be much more of a church coordinator than Nancy was more of an office manager. They're going to become Brandon's assistant in a sense, helping all of these particulars, whether it's volunteer coordination to event coordination to coordinating with David and Melissa to make sure they're covered in what they do. Because we understand we need our umbrella is getting bigger and we need someone to oversee the larger size.
Because I didn't even know we had the 2 weeks. I was just.
Okay, so I didn't either.
Randomly.
I had no first email, and then I go, oh, Robert, I'm a greeter. It says, yeah. And he goes, oh, me too.
Right,
I
yeah.
have no clue. I was signed up for 2 weeks.
Right? I didn't know that either.
I did
That's
know
a way
that.
of,
I did know that it was 2 weeks.
volunteer recruitment.
But you see, here's the confusion, you guys, was the fact that we took our old way of greeting and then the new connection team, and we kind of tried to meld them, and that's where we
That's
went
got
wrong.
confused.
Because greeters were not included in that. Greeters get
okay.
the email, the
Yes.
connection team got the calendar. And that's why we're stepping back, and I was saying to Brandon when he's saying, well, how do you think it's working? It's like, it can be confusing. And therefore, here's the reset button to say,
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
we need to blend that with that. And that was our challenge because we had a lot of great ideas and we wanted to implement as many as we could. But then we were trying to pull this other thing that we needed into that. And we did the best we could. Plus, right at that time was the exact same time we had the major office change. And it's like, darn.
And
So
to your
then-
guys' point, both Matt and I are vision big picture, and so we realize if we have key places filled with one person at name tags, one at kids first time check-in, one at greeting, one at guest host, that's
You have 2 greeters.
4, right?
Yeah, 2
Right,
weeks.
this is ideal,
Two
like
greeters.
2.
Oh.
But to your saying, well, reality hits, real life hits, you guys are out of town, you guys are sick, then we fill in, I'll step in, my wife will step in, so we'll get it, but this is ideally, if everyone's here,
Right.
we have a big kickoff Sunday, everyone's committed, everyone's healthy, in a perfect
And in
world.
town.
Yeah, and then to Greg's point, all this is in mind, we are looking at young families because they're gonna grow and have youth. And so that's, in a few years, we're gonna have more of a problem than we do now with where's the youth gonna grow? Where's the youth gonna go as they grow? And as we look at our space now, that's the reality is we have renters that, Lord willing, will provide us with the church position financially and space-wise. We can use that as that youth area. And so it is a little bit of a tight, elbow room, shoulder room, but it's like, ideally, this is the lobby, this is the multi-use room, and youth has that next section,
Nice.
the vision, big picture, that we could kick them out, which a couple people know them, and they're Christians and believers and excited about this church and where they're going. So I just see God's hand. I share all that with you because God's called us to do big things, and we have to step out in faith, and it's going to be a little bit of, I know it's tight, and we need to care for the youth and the young families because they're the church. And we're stewarding them and discipling them and raising them up. And I think the renters we have and the position that we are in church-wise gives us an opportunity to greet the young families that are looking for churches. As I was sharing with Keith, what I've seen as I look at the trends here, young families are moving out because of finances, but young families are also moving in because this is their dream. This is the Central Coast. This is as close as you can get to Garden of Eden. And so they're, especially those that live in the valley. Like everyone that I know has moved out here recently, young families came from the valley and they made it work. And now they're looking for community because they didn't grow up here. And the reality of why this is something I'm pushing right away is because when I was at ABC, they didn't have this. And we went through a hard time and people left the church. And as I was putting my new role over families, I'm like, well, I'm a young family. I don't know church, I was doing youth ministry, but I did know, well, 7th grader, 6th grader, insecure, you walk up to a program, they shut the lights out, the smoke goes, the band goes, everything's happening and you're new. What do you need at that point in time? You need a relationship. You need someone to connect to you. And ultimately you have a small group, you're gonna connect a couple hours later. We don't have a small group, but we have that time after service to create those circles. And so as a priority for us now, going, okay, we have families looking for churches. How do we connect them? How do we highlight, we have youth and we have kids, and we want to do that better. Can you help us? And that's the heartbeat, is saying what we're doing is we're doing it well. but we also acknowledge we can do it better. And so we welcome the feedback because we don't have it figured out perfectly.
You know, I think, and the 3 seconds are to meet people, but the after the time service is to incorporate people. Because you're not going to incorporate them in 3 seconds. You're going to get them comfortable enough to stay to find out if they want to talk to people afterwards. So I think for my, say, vision of what I've seen after service is that often, the way it's currently going, is that there's after about 15 minutes after the service, a lot of people, it's pretty empty. Even though there are some people here who are kind of new and kind of trying to figure out what's going on, and then people leave. So what I would hope is that, one thing, we don't have 2 services. You know, we don't have an evening service, but that we try to get as many people who can, trying to make it to have, and we don't have a small group plan going right this moment. So I believe that if people would go to lunch at 11:50 or 11:45, or stay till at least 11:30, and that includes the staff, where we don't have people who have been on the band. I know they've been here a long time, but I'm just saying that compared to other services where you have 2 services, 3 services, 1 in the evening, etc., I think if we can increase that, that's going to kind of be a community thing. Just even like you have there's the dinner, the Thanksgiving dinner is probably going to be in the evening, but some type of thing. Doesn't have to be around food always, but where people will stay long enough, it might only be another 15 minutes.
And that's what we're creating.
But I'm just saying that but I'm saying an expectation that that as many people who are on the staff will be there, not just the greeters. You know, not the greeters and the band's gone. Not the greeters and
Yeah, what you're saying
the
is-
staff is gone, because I think people need, if we can do that, particularly now, you're trying to envelop
Right.
these
Okay.
people,
Yes.
then it can't be in just 3 seconds. The 3 seconds ain't gonna do it.
Right.
You know.
The 3 seconds, to your point, is to make
That's the
them
welcome.
comfortable.
No, I understand, but I'm
There's
talking
buy-in.
about, I wanna make them welcome afterwards, and the thing I see afterwards is that we need to have more mass, more critical mass here in the 20 minutes after the service.
And you don't hear that in this plan?
I'm not talking so much about this because I don't know how this plan is going to work out. I wanted to state it to emphasize
Sure.
it as part of the plan.
Right, and let me state then, since I obviously didn't make it clear, the whole intent of having things outside is so that they have reason to stay. Rolling the door up, making sure that the parent doesn't feel like, yep, we're done, see ya. It's more like, we're here, we're open for business, and you can hang as you want. And that's the reason for the pop-up tents, the cornhole out there, the disc thing, the connection booth. We're driving people to a place they can hang out, which includes this little white fence here isn't there yet, but we're creating a space.
I did get that part of it. The thing that I'm trying to say is, if you take it, and this is your assigned task, you're the one to be here and hang around, versus I want everybody to hang around for 20 minutes.
Yeah, and that's realistic too.
But that's kind of a thing that I haven't seen.
Yeah, and
Nor
that's-
is it the paradigm. It will be the new paradigm though, based on what we're doing, because as we move into this, that is going to be directly correlated to staff. We're not asking everybody to say, hey, you guys do that. It's more like, we need you there, and we'll be there, because for us, the most important thing that we're missing, to your point, is FaceTime. I'm busy. I got things I got to get done to even make the service happen. At the end of the service, well, I'm in here setting this up. Well, I don't do this every Sunday, but on the other hand, as soon as I finally get to the place that I can have FaceTime, I'm going, oh, everybody's gone, right? So we are making sure that we're going to create a time and a place and an atmosphere that says, hang out, we're here. Because that's where I know I need to connect with people.
Yeah, well, part of it isn't just the staff, it's trying to communicate to the whole sense of, a lot of people who do go to groups for lunch afterwards, say, tell you what, delay by 20 minutes the starting time for your meal. And I think that was all it would take.
Sure.
And then when they meet the people, a couple of those people might feel comfortable with them, even that week or the next week, they'd go with them. But they have to meet them enough, rather than just say, oh, it's really nice having you here. You guys ready to go?
Yeah.
I reach over it.
Yeah,
For your
and I
local.
think creating this environment, would make it much easier for us to challenge them. Say, hey, we're doing this thing out here. Why don't you just take your kids out there before you go? So I think that that's going to be that transitional time, because I know we're all going to be educated on everything from the new lobby to how we're doing this, and that's going to be part of it. I'll be challenging people to stay, for sure.
Yeah.
Yes, Barbara?
I have another question about the starting time of the church.
Yeah.
What time did ABC start?
We had 3 services, 8, 9:15, and 11.
Oh, is there anyone that has a service after us here?
Yes, Mid-State Baptist, but they're, is it 2 o'clock?
1:30.
1:30.
Oh, because I know from being with my daughter and 3 children that it is so hard to get to church by 9:30, depending on where you live. But I was wondering if there was any possibility that you could move it to 10.
What we are going to address is what is best for our families, which might mean a different service, our 9:30 and something else.
Oh.
Don't know what the and something else is, but I mean, Brandon's bringing that to our attention. In fact, if you want to speak to that.
Yeah, I think it's on both ends, because certain families get up at 4 a.m. and they're like, can you have an earlier service for us? Certain families are saying another 5 minutes, and so you know, we have inherently a girl who will not go to bed before 10, and then she'll want to sleep until 10, and we're like, that's not, you know. So the family dynamics is a real thing, and as we reach young families, they're going to come to us with those. And so we've looked at it and going, you know, where we are right now, there's also the reality with the blended families or families that have kids doing sports. And so as I've done research and solicited a lot of feedback, it's, you know, Thursdays are a great night. I'm like, really? Thursdays are a great night. So Thursday night service? Yes, do it. We'll be there. I know a ton of other parents will be there, except for volleyball season and basketball season. But we'll be there.
Which only makes half the year.
And so, yeah, I'm like, okay, well, that's not a for sure thing.
Right.
And so which would be great to hear your feedback, Sunday nights seem to be the night, because a lot of club sports happen Sunday mornings now. And to the families that have a hard time getting up in the morning, they can have their Sunday family day and then come to church for early service at like 5. And so from what I've talked to a lot of families, they say either 8 a.m. service or at 5 o'clock. And so initially I was thinking, while the band's playing in there, we could do an express service in here, just the message at 8 or 8:30 for our volunteers who are serving at the service. They don't get the message. They don't get that time as a community when they're serving. And so I was thinking, well, if we're doing life groups in the winter, we're doing a series, and we want the life groups to be meeting and talking around the message that they've heard on Sunday, continuing that community. If we did a message here, but as we looked at it, it's like, well, then we're going to bump up against childcare, because those families that are up early want that 8 a.m. and then we maybe move the service out. And so it brings up a lot of who gets to be the squeaky wheel that gets the oil. And as we looked at it, it's like, well, if we do a Sunday morning, we're reaching this demographic, but we're also missing a lot that have club sports, which is a yearly thing or a season and a seasonal thing together. But if we did evening one, then the families that do sleep in to say, hey, do your family time and then be here at 5, and we'll create this other experience in the evening, which will accommodate for both. And then as we grow, we could look at an additional Sunday morning service. And those are things that we're planning for now. And so it does feel a little bit like, whoa, you're putting the cart before the horse. Where'd you come from, Brandon? But I'm trusting the Lord to say, okay, if we're expecting God to grow and bring families to connect here, then how are we going to greet them now? And then what space are we going to need to have them, and what service times are we going to have? So I'd even encourage you to have conversations with friends, and hey, with your family schedule structure, does the evening service fit? What do you think about that? Because as Keith reminded me, you know, growing up, they had the Sunday night service, the Wednesday night service, and then the Sunday morning service. And that was just standard. That's what you did. And as we're post-Christian, West Coast with Canada and New York, man, when it's convenient, when the internet connection works, they'll watch a live message most often 3 or 4 times before they go to a physical location. And so that's even a new paradigm that I'm trying to resource and find. There's a lot of free resources with the YouVersion Bible app that will allow us to do a church online, which doesn't say we're trying to detract, which a lot of people are scared. They're saying, no, they won't come to the physical location. But with a lot of our elders traveling, they can tune in. A lot of them do podcast messages. It's just another way to accommodate and to say, hey, we're here for you as a family. But the goal is always, first and foremost, what Greg was saying, we want that community to happen. And so we want that to be represented when you come here, because you can't get that online or through a podcast. And really that's what kids, youth, and families want. And so to say, okay, if that's the only morning time we offer that, we're going to still miss a large demographic, because our culture is so focused on kids' achievements through sports. So we need to be aware of that and potentially look at an evening service, which does bring up, opportunities for the conversation about youth and kids and how does that fit in with an evening service.
Any other questions regarding the hospitality team?
Comment. I think it would be great to have 1 to 2 of you head people that will keep your phone on till 9:30, because like there's been a time I woke up sick and no one answered their phone to say I can't get here to be a greeter. So something for us to have contacts that if A doesn't work, B will work, to say we're not going to make it. You need to
I'll
find
tell my
someone.
wife it was a good investment to get my Apple Watch, so I didn't miss it.
Right?
See, I told you, honey.
Yeah,
I
so
told you it was
you
a
could
good idea. I'm always accessible now.
dedicate numbers for that emergency.
That better not show up on your expense report.
Yeah.
Well, the
That's a
next
good
thing
point.
that I'm going to need, you guys, from you is where do you see yourself in this? And we'll do that. I don't want to take the time to do it now because I really want you to take this home, look at it and see what God might say as far as where you see yourself. Like I said, if you're already welcoming and you go, yeah, I love that. Or you also say, you know what, I could also play the inside of the guest host. It's one of those things, we'll find a schedule that works and in a sense, mix and meld what we can to make sure everybody's on 2 weeks, off 2 weeks, and operating in an area that they feel gifted to do. We are going to launch this November 3rd, which is 2 weeks from today.
Oh, wow.
And we're not that concerned about whether or not it goes off without a hitch, because they're, for the most part, other than the new family check-in, we're already doing everything we talked about. We just need to know who's in what position. I will email each of you. Some I say I don't have emails. If you plan on being part of this, and I don't have your email, which means you know if I don't, because you don't get anything from me, please let me know. Give me your email before you leave, because I'm going to ask you a couple questions. What position would you like to be in, knowing it's 2 weeks at a time? And second, how do you want to be contacted? It's one of the hardest things right now in our new technology world is someone says, I only see texts. I only want a phone call. If you don't email me, I won't see it. So I need to know that from you, because I want to contact you the way you want to be contacted, because I want to be respectful of the fact that I'm asking for your time. And I want to be sure that if I'm asking for it and you're able to give it, then I'm communicating clearly with you. Okay?
So you're saying that you're 2 weeks on and 2 weeks off?
Correct.
Oh.
Is that okay? Do you see that as working?
That's fine.
And that won't be
that was number what I thought.
Not as a greeter. That was one of those portions, once again, a greeter was just pre-selected at random on a rotation.
Okay,
Now
so that's
greeters,
why it wasn't
yeah.
too-
Now
Okay.
greeters will be incorporated. Greeters probably won't have to go 2 weeks in a row because we have so many greeters. So if you only see you being asked once a month, don't think that we're ignoring you. It's the fact that we have enough greeters that we don't have to use as many, and therefore everyone gets a little more time off.
And
It's the other positions like guest hosts.
what time frame are you expecting the greeters to be here?
About the same. We know that guests are doing their research. They're looking us up online, they're checking us out, they're getting a feel for who we are, where we are, and all that kind of stuff. New people don't come at 9:30. New people come at 9 o'clock-ish. So I would say somewhere around 9 o'clock we would be looking for greeters, because we know
Okay.
that's when the new people are coming in.
All right.
Can you walk me through this new kid's door?
Yeah.
So I'm envisioning coming in, the door's open. You're gonna have someone standing at the door, is that what you're saying?
No, just outside.
Okay.
Visualize the fact we've got the roll-up
Yeah.
door right next to it, that white door. Just outside that white door, with that door open, in front of that door, there will be a table
Okay.
and a banner that says check-in, new kids check-in.
New kids.
I don't even know.
First time.
First time check-in.
And then once they come through there and sign in, what happens? Because you said there's a curtain, so is it left open all the way
Yes,
right there?
Yeah,
it
it'll
is.
be open.
Okay.
Good question. There's going to be an opening. Yep.
Okay, and is that person walking them back or just
Yes.
directing them to?
Walking them back to whoever Dave and Melissa have at their check-in table. In other words, they can walk them straight in and say, hey, this is where you're going, this is where your kids are, they're already checked in.
So they're just walking
And you-
into
yeah.
someone else that's
Yes.
gonna walk them
But
into
to,
that.
yeah, to your point, and I think the thing that will save time is you can turn, if you're the new person check-in and you're walking a family
Take that
back.
new word out of there.
Yeah.
First time.
First time check-in. First time check-in. You can say, hey, next week when you come, you can just come right here,
Okay.
this check-in, and then just walk them in.
I'm interested to see how this is gonna all lay out.
So
Us too.
So as they walk in, they get to download, hey, this is our kids ministry, hey, everyone's are great, here's what you're gonna learn today. You know, there's a little bit of the feel so that a lot of those parents are like, they've done the investigation on the church, they know what we believe, who we are, but what are their kids gonna experience? Then they get to be walked in and dropped off with, hey, this is where they hang out, and they go through the lesson, there's also play structure.
Brandon, I'm gonna let you close this if you
All right.
have anything else on your
Yeah.
heart.
Yeah, thank you guys for being here, and the biggest thing is our heart, that we want you to walk away going, okay, we're not just trying to dump all of the expectation on you, but knowing that, as Matt said, we do get pulled here and there from time to time, and so to reproduce ourselves and to make sure that there is a place that we can go after the service and get people the help they need to take the next step in their discipleship path as we get more intentional and clarify that. I just appreciate you guys and tremendously because I know your schedule is more than full. So I'm going to pray now and get you guys out of here. And as you guys process this and talk with other people and they see it, we want to maintain an open line of feedback. Whether you can't make it or you have a great idea or hey, have you thought about this? Chances are we're going to figure it out and as we build the airplane in the air. And it'll be amazing once we land it. So let's pray. God, we thank you for our time. We thank you for your people here that have been doing such a great work, Lord, as we take this step of faith and just ask you to continue to bring the families, bring the people that you need to continue to impact and grow and build your kingdom. Lord, we're grateful for just this time to dream, to share, and even just clarify what it is that this hospitality team is going to be doing going forward and how we can be ready to greet those families who are moving here or visiting here and looking for a church. And oftentimes they've never opened a Bible before, and this is their first opportunity to hear and see your love tangibly with a smile. May they see and feel that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks so much for your time, you guys. Really appreciate it.